Hello, everybody, and welcome into another week of NJCAA All Access. Hope you had a happy Halloween. It is November 2nd, and I'm Zach McKinstry.
I'm Alexa Wesselman, and we've got a lot going on. Fall sports are either winding down or in region championships, and we're also exactly 1 week away from fall championship season starting.
Yeah, bracket reveals are going to be coming out all week long, so be on the lookout for those. We've got plenty of good matchups this weekend and plenty to catch you up on, starting with this week's JUCO scoreboard. We start on Thursday, where for the first time in who knows how long, no season-altering crazy upsets happened. We did come close to one, though, as number 7 Copiah Lincoln needed overtime to defeat East Central. Johnny Daniels put the team on his back and carried them, scoring 4 rushing touchdowns on 159 yards, and most of them would count in two-hand touch as he breezed through the Warriors' defense and set a school record for rushing scores in a game with this overtime winner. 40-34, Colin hangs on. EMCC clinched their 11th division title under Buddy Stevens with a 31-17 win over Itawamba, and Northwest Mississippi won a tight one against Holmes. Plenty of exciting action on Saturday, starting with more Mississippi mayhem. Number 4 Jones will drop out of a playoff spot after being shocked by a 1-win Mississippi Delta team on their own field. Sir Trotter's name perfectly described his performance as he royally jogged into the end zone twice, tallying 177 yards, including this 98-yard TD untouched on 3rd and 26 from their own 2-yard line. He wasn't the only star, as the Trojans' defense collected 8 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and the Bulldogs' special teams added a massive punt block to set up another score in the 36-33 victory. Number 6 Mississippi Gulf Coast is back to being Mississippi Gulf Coast. They throttled Hines 41-0. And how about number 5 Snow putting on a clinic in their 29-point win over Lackawanna? Donovan Smith threw 4 touchdowns, 3 to Jared Wilson, and this 33-yarder to Amir Magruder as the Badgers put up a 50-burger on the number 12 Falcons. The game we predicted to be a low-scoring, old-school defensive masterclass turned out to be exactly that, as Highlands defense did everything they could, but the offense couldn't crack the scoreboard in a 13-0 win for number 1 Hutch. The Scots had 11 tackles for loss and 3 takeaways, but allowed a late first-half touchdown after a shanked punt and a second-half touchdown off a missed field goal in the loss. Hutch's defense showed why they're the best in JUCO football, allowing 14 total rush yards and picking off Highland 3 times, with 2 from Ryan Nolan, who is tied for the national lead with 6 interceptions on the year. Number 2 Iowa Western made light work of rival number 14 Iowa Central to add to their undefeated season. Number 13 Butler was upset by Coffeyville, and number 3 Kilgore added to their playoff resume in a big way, blowing out number 11 Tyler. Cameron Peters had more passing touchdowns than incompletions, which is usually a recipe for success. And his top receiver, Zeke Freeman, continues to shine. 4 more receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. And over the last 2 weeks, he has 288 yards on 9 receptions and a pair of scores. The best way to articulate the absurdity of those numbers is he's averaging 32 yards every time he touches the ball the last couple games. Big-time stats for Zeke Freeman and a big-time win for Kilgore. Number 8 Trinity Valley scraped by New Mexico Military at the Wool Bowl, and Garden City shut out Ellsworth. Nothing new in Division III, as number 1 DuPage, number 2 Rochester CTC, and number 5 Louisburg stay hot, and number 3 North Dakota SCS staved off number 4 Minnesota North Mesabi Range 21-17. And some big district games across fall sports. Number 1 Genesee lost to number 5 Herkimer in the North B District Championship for Division III men's soccer. That was a big surprise. Number 18 Kellogg shut out number 8 Schoolcraft in D2 women's soccer. Number 9 Illinois Central upset number 4 Iowa Central in an important D2 volleyball match. And lastly, number 2 Owens Community College was swept by an unranked Harper squad in the district championship in D3 volleyball, and Harper secured their automatic bid to the championships in Iowa. Well, we're one round into district championships and already a bunch of upsets. Surely some more to come. Here's Alexa with the top matchups this weekend.
All right, let's look at some of the matchups we're going to be looking at over the next week. And we start with D1 football. Number 6 Mississippi Gulf Coast at number 10 Jones. A heavy implication game here. The winner of this one goes to the MACCC playoffs, and the loser is out of contention. If Mississippi Gulf Coast wins, it will be their 4th straight conference title. And Jones is coming off a surprise upset from Mississippi Delta, giving them their 2nd loss of the season. Keeping in football, but going over to D3, we've got number 2 Rochester Community and Technical College at number 3 North Dakota SCS. This MCAC championship game will feel like deja vu for players and fans. That's because they played already this season on October 7th, so really not that long ago. And RCTC walked away with the win after a missed 2-point conversion by North Dakota. Looking at men's soccer now in D1, number 2 Salt Lake at number 1 Arizona Western. This matchup is the West District Championship game. Both schools have played several of the same teams, which both of them won against. A 1-2 matchup is always going to be a very good game, so keep an eye out for that one. Staying in soccer, but moving to women's D3, number 13 Pearl River at number 1 Jones. This is the Region 3 semifinal, and Pearl River had to fight to get to this game. They battled Mississippi Gulf Coast until the very end to secure their spot. Jones has been a strong team all season, and despite dropping their regular season finale, they earned that number 1 spot and the right to host in the district tournament. Moving to volleyball D3, number 8 Harper at number 9 Delta. This is round 1 of the 2023 NJCAA Division III Championship in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And like we mentioned in the open, don't forget championship season kicks off next week. It's here already. And we've got our ESPN Plus Game of the Week. We have Butler at number 9 Dodge City. Butler is coming off 2 straight losses, to number 2 Iowa Western and to Coffeyville last week. Dodge City has 3 losses, but they're 2 very good teams. Number 1 Hutch, number 2 Iowa Western, and number 6 Snow. This is the first time that either school has been featured on our ESPN Plus Game of the Week. So be sure to catch this game on Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. All right, we're going to toss it over to Zach and Aaron, who have a lot to talk about because rankings and how teams are playing now are having playoff implications.
Thanks, Alexa. We welcome back Aaron Arnold to talk some more football. And as the calendars flip to November, these games every single weekend from here on out, there's going to be meaningful football, which is really exciting. But first, I want to give you some love. Congratulations, we finally got a prediction right. Highland and Hutch was pretty much exactly how we called it last week. Low scoring, 13-0 ball game, 17 tackles for loss and 6 takeaways between the two teams. And Hutch went on to win that one 13-0. The only 2 scores came on a shanked punt and a missed field goal to set up good field position for Hutch. So in a late season battle like that for the number 1 team that hasn't been tested too much, what does that do for them moving into the end of the season?
Well, first of all, I was happy as well to get a prediction right. I've been a little off this year, but it's hard to predict in junior college football, man. Anything can happen, and that game did go, about how I thought it would go. I think a big part of the story for Highland was just that they turned it over 3 times. I think they created 3 turnovers as well, which they had to do, but they couldn't afford to give it up 3 times. The margin for error in a game like that's pretty thin, and when you throw it to the wrong team 3 times in any game, it's hard to win. So as far as how it affects Hutchinson, I think it's always good to be tested. I think it's good to be put in a situation where you have to fight a little bit and overcome some adversity, and Hutch hasn't had a lot of that. But the flip side of that is late in the season, you're really trying to watch that injury report and keep your guys healthy as you get into the home stretch here. And when 2 great defenses like that play each other, they beat each other up. If you're good on defense, like elite on defense, you're physical. You can't be great on defense and be soft. So I'd be really interested to see, is Hutch limping away from that game? Do they have some thigh bruises and some shoulders that are sore? And, what are they going to look like next week when they play a tough game? Independence is no vacation for them. And I think the Pirates are going to be real excited about an opportunity to spoil Hutch's perfect record. So Hutch needs to be really careful this week to not get caught in a trap game where they're thinking about that big game in 2 weeks. They better be ready when they get off the bus at Independence, or they're going to have their hands full with the Pirates.
Yeah, it was interesting to see a game where they didn't dominate every single phase. I think Highland held them to under 150 passing yards. And if anything, that confirms that Highland's defense is legit, and they're going to be an up-and-coming star in the next couple of seasons. Moving forward, we have a huge game this weekend. We were talking a little bit about the Mississippi League before we started, but it's Jones and Mississippi Gulf Coast coming up. And the stakes could not be higher for Gulf Coast. Win and obviously still in the national playoff race, but a loss, and not only are you out of the national playoff race, but you miss the conference playoffs as a 2-divisional loss team. So a huge opportunity for Mississippi Gulf Coast. Bulldogs have the backs to the wall. How do you think they respond?
Well, yeah, I think the biggest surprise last week was the upset. Jones College getting knocked off. I definitely did not expect to see that. I think the key takeaway from that is, and I hope voters hear this, it's a testament to the depth in that conference. It's not a statement about how good the top team is in that league. It's a statement about how good the bottom teams are in that league. And it's unfortunate for Mississippi because they're just beating themselves up right now. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens as the season goes on, but they've just really abused themselves, and we'll see what happens. As far as the Gulf Coast games, you're right. Their back is definitely against the wall. I mean, it's all or nothing this week for them. It's basically like an elimination game almost. And so I like Gulf Coast. I have since the beginning of the season. They look impressive to me. They're just outside the top 10 in total defense. They're only giving up 250 yards a week, and they're 9th in scoring. They only give up 17 points per game. If they can just go out and do what they do, I would pick Gulf Coast to win that game. I certainly think the Mississippi league deserves to get one team into the playoff without question. It's going to be interesting, though. I mean, Colin has Hines this week, and again, that's a game they should win. But then, unfortunately, if Gulf Coast wins, those two teams are going to play each other in the playoffs. And so, one of them won't advance to the conference championship. And, I guess all you can really say about Mississippi is it is just going to be a wild ride to the finish, and anything can happen.
It's going to be fun to watch for sure, and it's a great segue as we start to talk about the rankings. Maybe some of those poll makers have been listening to us. Last week we talked about Colin being ranked behind Mississippi Gulf Coast. This week they flip-flop. Colin jumps in front of them, even though they needed overtime to get by East Central, and Mississippi Gulf Coast beat Hines 41-0. So what did you notice about the rankings this week? Where do you like where they're setting up?
Yeah, I was happy to see the adjustment there for the Colin Mississippi Gulf Coast rankings, although it's not going to matter because they're going to play each other, it looks like, and so it's all going to get sorted out. Here's the way I see the playoff race today. Hutch and Iowa Western are both in. To me, it doesn't matter what happens in the game between them, barring like a crazy blowout, which I don't see happening. As long as that game stays within a score or two scores, both of those teams are going to get into the playoffs, as they should. They're both going to be, they might be the only one-loss teams in the country at that point. So those two teams are in. Kilgore controls their own destiny. If they win out, win the Texas League, they're in. They've been outstanding all season, and they deserve to get in if they can finish the season with one loss, which, who knows, there's a lot of football left in the Texas League. So that leaves the fourth and final spot. To me, that should go to the winner of the Mississippi League this year. I think the Mississippi League is as good as any league. It's certainly as deep as any league. Especially that holds true if that one-loss team happens to be Gulf Coast or Colin. One of those two teams finishes it with one loss. For me, it'd be really hard to make an argument to keep a one-loss Gulf Coast or a one-loss Colin team out of the playoffs. If somehow, this is where things get really interesting. If Kilgore gets beat again, and the Mississippi League champ is a two-loss team, or even crazier, if both of those things happen, then it gets really interesting. We've got a little Halloween madness for the remaining fourth spot. So it's difficult to forecast what would happen at that point, but based on the way they're voting right now, it looks like the one thing that we do know is that a two-loss snow team is probably going to slide in there to one of that, either the third or fourth spot, depending on what happens everywhere else. So a lot of football left to play. And as always is the case with junior college football, man, anything can happen. And it'll be a lot of fun to see what happens this weekend.
This weekend and moving forward as we get into those football playoffs. And as you mentioned, if Kilgore does end up losing, it is a very real possibility there's going to be about 6 teams fighting for the final 2 spots for a 2-loss playoff team. So a lot to be determined, a lot to be excited about. Thank you, sir, Aaron Arnold, and we appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right, Coach Aaron, as always, thanks so much for joining us. And maybe your opinion on this week's show will impact next week's rankings again. Okay, we previewed JUCO Jam last week. This week, we're going to preview our D1 women's basketball show that starts next week. Stay tuned after the break to hear what's coming up in Hot Hoops.
Intensity fuels these champion student athletes to greatness. Zurich Insurance is proud to be the official provider of student athlete insurance for the National Junior College Athletic Association. Throughout the highs, we cheer along to their screams of victory. Throughout the lows, we support them through their tears of defeat. Zurich Insurance, helping student athletes play the sport they love.
I have a little birthday message for you from someone too.
I heard you really love basketball. You're a good shooter and a good dribbler. Happy birthday, MJ, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Welcome back to NJCAA All Access. We talked last week about JUCO Jam kicking off their second season, talking about D1 men's basketball. So we had to start our own D1 women's basketball show. It starts next week, NJCAA Hot Hoops with Dan Olson and Kenya Landers. They're here and they're going to give you a little preview of what you can expect.
Thanks, Alexa. We're here with the host of Hot Hoops, our new NJCAA women's basketball show. It is Dan Olson, Kenya Landers. Thanks for joining us. Got a lot to talk about with the preseason polls that came out last week. Unanimous number 1, Northwest Florida State. Number 2, Trinity Valley. What did you guys see about the preseason polls?
Well, if I can start off, no surprise, Northwest Florida State, the defending national champion, playing it safe. We're going to give them the number 1 nod for sure. I've seen them play early, and like many teams early in Jamboree season, a lot of rust on their team, but they'll start to work that out as they go along. Trinity Valley, I have yet to see, although they're picked number 2. I know they've had a lot of injury and have had limited Jamboree time. I don't believe maybe any. And but Kenya being a former Lady Card, she can probably shed some light on Precious Ivy, her team, as they move forward and what we can probably see from them.
Yes. And looking over this, the polls, you see a lot of return people, right? You see a lot of the people that teams that have really, really established programs and that have worked really hard over the years to maintain their programs and continue to compete at such a high level. JUCO basketball, it is one of the biggest grinds that you will ever see from a competitive standpoint. I mean, like we're saying about, the Lady Cards, they've had injuries, they've had, not been able to compete yet, but them, Northwest Florida State, the magic that happens with JUCO basketball starts to happen after Christmas break. Everything that's pretty much going on right now, early in the year, it's just the luck of the draw. I mean, you're still trying to get kids used to your program, your expectations, keeping them on the right track. But I'm excited to keep my eye on this poll this year, and I'm excited to see how all the teams continue to compete.
Yeah, we see that grind, that turnover pretty frequently. The number 1 at the end of the regular season last year, South Georgia Tech, They dropped to 16 in the preseason poll this year, so that's another one to look at. But moving to Florida, 3 of the top 6 teams in the country right now are in Florida. Do you guys think that Florida is the premier NJCAA Lady Hoop state right now?
I would have to give it to the Panhandle. They're strong. But Eastern Florida State's become a new player in this whole mix. And they've proven themselves on a national stage. But I don't want to discount some of the West Texas teams like South Plains, New Mexico. You've got Odessa still lurking about, Midland. There are some teams out there that pound for pound in their strength of their league can do some matching with the Panhandle in the overall strength. But Northwest remains the big dog. Eastern Florida State, Gulf Coast, they're right there lurking about.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Dan. You know, in my playing experiences in JUCO and also my coaching experiences, every year we went to Florida and we went west to West Texas to compete because we knew that we were going to get top-notch competition. We were going to be pushed to the highest level, and it really gave us an opportunity to see what our ceiling was. You know, because you're also competing against other teams that are going to be national champion contenders. And so if you're really amongst the mindset of wanting to figure out what your team is all about and what you really need to work on to get there, you go to Florida and you go west.
Yeah, with the bulk of those talented teams in those areas, there's going to be some good regular season matchups, maybe some previews of some postseason stuff to happen later in the year. Very early on, I know it's a little crazy, but what are some of the way too early picks that you guys have that you think are going to surprise a lot of people this year?
Well, having been out the past month watching JUCO jamborees and practices, one of the surprise teams that I've seen has been Eastern Arizona. Cochise came out last year from that region. Eastern has really kind of bolstered their team, good recruiting, and has been pretty sharp. Salt Lake has started to make a turn back where they kind of took a hiatus over the last couple of seasons. They're starting to do well. And of course, you got Southern Idaho as a perennial power. But you know, a new player in the South perhaps might be Pearl River, Mississippi. They've looked good in jamborees during the early time frame, and they've got some depth at their guard position. So we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out, you know, as the season goes on. Like Kenya said, this is a grind. You know, it's a marathon. What you see now is not what you see in a month or 3 months from now, for sure.
Yeah. I haven't had the opportunity, as Dan has had, to see so many other teams, but you know, just from my knowledge of it and just from, you know, my experiences, I just know that this poll that came out this week is going to look completely different in a few weeks, and some things are gonna jump around, and there's some upsets are gonna happen, but it's just gonna be the people that are gonna be able to hang for a long period of time.
Yeah, well, one thing that we hope stays the same is that your number 2 Trinity Valley Cardinals stay up near the top. But thank you both. That's all I had for you. Very excited to see the show. It's November 8th, 3 p.m. on Wednesday. It'll be out on the NJCAA network, and we're excited to hear from you both then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That show is going to be really interesting to watch between Dan's knowledge of JUCO women's basketball and Kenya's experience in JUCO women's basketball. They're going to have a lot of insights that you don't want to miss. Okay, we're going to take another quick break, but coming back from that, we have rankings.
Future is threatened by enemies often unseen
Sailor Marine
and unexpected. In the midst of an uncertain and evolving world, the need for Marines to defeat these shifting threats is critical, because the need to ensure stability for our nation has never been greater. When there are battles to win for America's future, there is one constant: Marines.
Welcome back to NJCAA All Access. And we're going to get into some rankings, and we've got football and volleyball, no soccer rankings, because most of them are either wrapping up district championships or about to start. So we're just going to skip over all of the soccers and jump right into D3 football. No changes. College of DuPage is still leading the way. In D1 volleyball, not a single change until you get down to 16th. Polk State moves up several spots, and we have a new name this week, Casper, making their debut this season at 17th. D2 volleyball, a big fall for Iowa Central from 4th to 9th. Gulf Coast moves up a few spots into 12th, and another new name. Welcome to the rankings, Hartford Community College. D3 volleyball, Monroe College Bronx making moves, going from 6th to 4th. Previously ranked 4th, Dallas College Brookhaven falls to 7th, and Sandhills falling to 9th. One more new name, Raritan Valley. Those are all of the current rankings that we've got, but don't forget the D3 volleyball championship bracket was released on Tuesday. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, head over to njcaa.org and see where all of your favorite teams got ranked and who they're going to play in that first round. Let's send it back over to Zach.
Crossover season is the prime time at JUCO gyms because, like Hannah Montana, we get the best of both worlds, winter sports, fall sports, and this week we start with Mississippi Junior College football. Whether or not EMCC can sneak into a playoff spot is still ambiguous, but what is definitely clear is that Ty Keys is that guy. He throws a dot here just over the cornerback for a back shoulder touchdown in East Mississippi's win over Itawamba. Down in Cocoa, Florida, Luke Ackerman Stanfield slices it inside the wall and goes far post for a free kick goal for the Titans of East Florida State. More soccer in Mississippi. Who needs feet or your head? When a cross is that perfect, you can just run right into it. And that's exactly what Kristen Phillips did for Holmes in their big upset win over #1 Jones College. A lot of top teams in Division II women's soccer out of Mississippi. And lastly, basketball is back in a big way for former Northeastern Plainsman Dalton Connect. Boom! Behind the back dribble and a vicious slam, as the now Tennessee Vol takes Michigan State to Funky Town in their 89-88 exhibition win. What a play as he shines in that exhibition game with a top play you'll likely be seeing more of around social media. Big play for the former Northeastern Junior College Plainsman to wrap up the Junior College Gyms.
And look at that. We've got some first basketball highlights in JUCO Gems this week as we transition from fall sports into winter.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing more of those on our JUCO Gyms. Reminder, you can send those in at the NJCAA Network on Twitter or on Facebook. And that's all we got for you for this week's NJCAA All Access. We'll see you right back here next week.